Well, thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Marianne. Thanks to our partners at MSD for Mothers. It was a great session and a great way to close out our main programming for the day. I'm again Raj Kumar, President and Editor-in-Chief of Devex, back in our New York studio on the outskirts of the UN General Assembly, here with my colleague once again, Adva Saldinger, who you've seen today. Welcome, Adva.
Thanks, Raj.
So, what do you think? How has the day gone for you?
I think it's been a great day, and we kicked off with that conversation I had with Akam Steiner, and I think one of the things that's interesting is that news is moving so fast. We saw yesterday in his speech at the UN General Assembly, China's Xi Jinping announced that they wouldn't do any more international financing of coal. That's something that Akam Steiner and I had talked about in our conversation, and so I think we'll see where things go from there. Does private sector step back? How quickly we see some of that come into play, and then how do we see financing pathways for renewables really step up into that space?
Exactly, and it just cements the fact that this week, this moment here at the General Assembly is a time when pretty big, important decisions are made or commitments are made, announcements get made that start to roll up as we get to the next key milestones in the year and can matter on some of the big issues. You write Devex Invested. It sounds to me like that's a Devex Invested story. Is that a preview of what we're going to see in your next issue?
Sure. And for folks who don't know, Devex Invested is a weekly newsletter where we talk about development finance, but also a lot more than that, really the role of business and the SDGs and of sort of market-based solutions to development. And so, yeah, we'll be talking about things like that announcement. I'll be bringing you sort of inside some of the conversations I've had this week in New York. So check out Tuesday's edition if you want to sort of get a sense of what the financing and private sector buzz has been.
I certainly will. It's one of many great newsletters we have at Devex. If you haven't subscribed, please do so. We've, of course, got the Newswire, which is our must-read daily global development newsletter, and many, many others. I do want to mention our coverage today is not over. Our main session is finished, but I will be back in just about an hour or two at 1 p.m. Eastern for a special session on digital inclusion brought to us by our partners at AARP. It's a really interesting session because there's a lot of conversation around connectivity, but often we leave out older people. And I think this conversation is going to give a new kind of insight for those of you who are not clued into this issue. It's really worth following along. I hope you join us. And maybe I'll just say a word or two about what's coming tomorrow, because we have another action-packed day. In fact, you'll see a little bit more of me. But before I mention my events tomorrow, I want to say that we're going to have an interview with Henrietta Fore, which should be fascinating. She is the executive director of UNICEF, but she has announced her retirement. She's on her way out. So it'll be an interesting moment to hear some of her reflections. I'm going to be doing a couple of interesting interviews. Winnie Byanyima, the UN AIDS chief, I'll be talking with her in the morning. David Miliband, of course, the former UK Foreign Secretary, now the IRC President and CEO, and Martin Griffiths, who's the relatively new UN humanitarian chief. A lot of really interesting insights, I think, to come in those conversations, so I hope you'll stay tuned for those. You've got a session tomorrow too, don't you?
Yeah, I do. It's a really interesting conversation looking at sort of UN and private sector engagement and how it's changed and how the UN is working to better work with private sector partners and sort of the real evolution and the need for greater cooperation as the SDGs become more and more important.
So that's just a little flavor of what's to come tomorrow, because there's actually a lot more. I do hope you'll join us. I know we have people from all over the world joining. We really appreciate your activity in the chats. You know that we have translation in Spanish and French once again tomorrow, so take advantage of that if you'd like. And a big thank you to all of our innovation partners, AstraZeneca, Bayer, IFAD, MSD for Mothers, Novartis, and the Novartis Foundation, Save the Children, Smile Train, and our underwriter, Rabobank. Really appreciate their support of all of the coverage you're hearing about this week. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And until then, we'll see you on Twitter. And I'll see many of you, if not all of you, at 1 p.m. Eastern for this session with AARP.